Okay, in this video, I want to show you another way to display data. In this case, I want to show you how to create a pie chart. The scenario of this learning activity is that we want to summarize how donations are being distributed to the American Heart Association. So the objective here is to create a pie chart, and we're going to explore some of the options that are available to us within the pie chart itself. So let's go ahead and open up the starting file for this learning activity. Okay, once you open up the file, we have the distribution of donations and to various categories here. We have research, public health, education, community service, and so forth, and the percentage of how donations are distributed amongst these categories. So what we'd like to do is summarize this through a pie chart. Let's click on a cell that is blank. Let's go to Insert, Pie, and we can see there's various pie chart options that we have. Once we create the first pie chart, which I'm just going to create a simple pie chart, which is not separated, which is all connected, we can actually change this to a 3D broken up pie chart, otherwise known as an exploded pie chart later. So let's go ahead and start with this one. So let's go ahead and right click on the canvas and go to select data. We want to add a series. In this case, we're going to add them all at once. Let's go to add. The series name I'm going to leave as % for now. And as far as the series value, I'm going to delete this default 1 and select all the percentages. Let's hit OK and hit OK again. So we have constructed a pie chart. We do notice that we do have a legend, but it's very difficult to tell what this legend is referring to. So what we actually want to do is pull in the category names to replace the number of categories we actually have, 1 through 6. So let's go back and right click on the chart, go to select data again, and while we have % actually highlighted, we need to modify the horizontal category. So let's go ahead and hit edit. And now it's asking us for the axis label range. The labels that we want to use will be research all the way down through management. And we can see already, even before hitting the OK button, we get a preview here. So let's go ahead and hit OK there, OK here. So starting to take shape. We might want to replace this % for our chart title as either text that we want to type in. Maybe we want to say distribution of donations to, I'll just abbreviate this, American Heart Association. Of course, that is standard to text, which is unlinked to anything. What we actually might want to do is link it to a cell. We can click the box, hit equals, and actually reference the chart title to the text that we have here highlighted in a red shade. Let's go ahead and do that. That way, anytime we make a change to this text in this cell, the change will also be reflected here. So I'm actually going to go in this cell and go ahead and add the American Heart Association. So distribution of donations to American Heart Association. Hit enter and we can see that since this is linked, we now have an updated chart, which is nice. There's so many things that we can do with pie charts. If we click on the chart itself, you'll see chart tools. We have different designs. We have different color possibilities that are defaulted, anywhere from a black and white or grayscale to a default multicolor scale, or just variations of a single color. Let's say, for example, variations of oranges. I think this is a little bit difficult to interpret, so I'm going to leave it as the default. In this case, I'm going to just leave it as the first selection here. Style 2 is what they call it. We can resize our graphs. If you click on the corner, any corner for that matter, you'll get this arrow. We can simply drag this to make it look a little bit bigger. There's various chart layouts that we might want to use. For example, maybe we want to take away the legend and actually put those legends, those categories, near the portions of the pie with a given percentage. Okay, so we can definitely do that. There are some other options you might want to play with. For example, let's change where the label is and integrate the percentages in the chart. Get rid of the chart title altogether. So just about anything that's typical you can do. I'm going to hit undo so I can get my chart title back and start from scratch here. What I actually want to do is manually do some of the things that we were seeing in the chart layout options. So one of the first things I'm going to do is remove this legend, because I want to actually put the legend around the pie, which I think is a little bit more convenient in terms of interpretation. So to delete this legend, we can simply click on it a single time and select it and hit delete. We can move through the layout features, and what you're going to see here are the highlighted versions or the highlighted options that we have available to us. Some are grayed out, which we don't have. What I want to do is actually add data labels. And right now we have a choice of putting it in the center. So these are the actual percentages. We could put it inside, outside, or best fit. I'm going to leave it on best fit for now. So we don't have all the information that we want to display. What we can actually do is right click on any of these numbers that are displaying and go to Format Data Label. And here we have a wide variety of options to add. Since I want you to see the preview of what's going on, I'm going to move this window to the left here. If we actually wanted a series name, which our series is called percentage, so that's not going to be useful, but let's just take a look and see what happens. It's actually going to put the series name within these data labels that we are displaying here. I'm going to take that off. Right now you're just seeing the value and the show leader lines. We're actually not seeing leader lines, and I'll demonstrate what that actually means in a second. But one thing might be helpful is actually to show the category. So let's show the category. We have the value. In this case, our table is actually already representing a percentage, but these actually could be raw numbers, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, let's just say, and we could actually tell the pie chart to display that percentage. So here it doesn't necessarily make sense because our table is already in percentage, but if you had the raw numbers and didn't calculate the percentage, this option will calculate the percentage. I'm going to take that off and go through the rest of the options here under label options. Right now we're leaving it as best fit, and what I like to do is actually include the legend key, so it actually puts a little bit of color here outside of the data label. For right now, let's just go ahead and hit close. What you might want to do is manually move around some of these labels. And as I grab the wrong thing there for a second, it's a little tricky to grab individual labels, but once you do, this little line here that you're seeing is the leader line. So even if you have it displayed or clicked to display, it won't actually display until you tell it or till you manually move it outside of the pie. We could go back into the data labels and say, well, instead of best fit, let's try to put it outside, so it's a little easier to maneuver, but it actually has to be far enough away to actually show the lines. So for example, management, or maybe better yet, research is not that it's pretty close to the pie, but if we drag it out a little further, we'll actually see the line. So depending on the situation, this could be very useful in showing categories that are very close together. So maybe you have several categories that all maybe take up very little space, and you want to make it very clear where what distribution these portions of the pie are taken out from. Okay, so another thing that you might be noticing is that I'm not displaying percentages or anything like that. The numbers here, 23.3, are not actual percentages. So we sort of have a problem here. If I format this, you'll notice that for one, the numbers are not necessarily percentage, and the graph takes on the default of whatever your data is actually formatted in. So I'm actually going to put this back to a decimal form. We can actually select general to get it back to what we had for you to start with. We could actually change what we're seeing in the chart irrespective of the format here in the table. So let's right click on those data labels and go to number. And one of the things you might want to do is increase or decrease the number that you're seeing. For example, let's say that this is a percentage. We can manually change this, and again, this doesn't necessarily make sense because our numbers are given in terms of percentage, but we could in fact change these values irrespective of the format here, and so we could do that. We could actually take away decimal places, and this is just an example of all the things that you can do. So I'm not showing decimal places here. Again, I understand that this doesn't meet what we actually want to present. If it actually, if you want to, we can actually format these as a percentage and manually retype these. So we could say 32.3, 23.5, 12.6, 12.1, 10.9, and 8.6. Okay, so now we actually have these in the correct field, and that demonstration I wanted to show you is just to give you an idea that your graph is going to be tied to the data. So if you want to start manipulating it, your core data has to be formatted correctly. But there are ways to sort of disassociate it. For example, once we have this, we're actually not displaying any decimal places. You'll remember there were a couple 0.5s and whatnot. Just to prove that, let me display a little bit more in terms of the decimal places. That should be sufficient. Okay, we have 2 decimal places shown here, but only, well, actually none here in our chart. If we wanted to control that, we could right-click Data Labels, go to Number, and change how we display those numbers. So right now it's 0, it's manually forced. Previously, this was linked to source. So if we did that, these would be exactly changed. But if we want to manually change it different from our source, we could do so. So I'm going to say this is a percentage. I want to show 0 decimal places and hit close. And these formats are different from these formats, which could be useful. And again, it's tied to the source. So if you want to break that, you could that source link, you can actually manually change whatever you want to display here. Okay, so we have this pie chart pretty much the way I wanted, at least. Again, it's based on your own likes and dislikes. Let me show you another way to quickly create a pie chart. We did the manual way first. What we can actually do is highlight our table and go to Insert Pie. This time I'm going to go with a 3D pie. And since we have our data separated into a category percentage fashion, that Excel knows or realizes that's the correct way. So it's going to generate that pie really quick for us. I'm going to move this to the right of our first pie and do some additional formatting. I'll make this one black or grayscale, black and white. I'm going to reference the title here, just like before. I'm actually going to get rid of the labels in the legend. I'm going to right click and show you another way to add those data labels. We can do that right here. We can then go on and format those data labels to show the legend key. I'm going to say outside, and let's show category name, so we have everything there. If we want to sort of manually move this around, we can click around until we see this border around the pie chart and actually make it a little smaller, and maybe that'll give us a chance to pull out these category names so we actually see which category they're associated with. So let me just go ahead and summarize here. There's many other things that we can do. Certainly there's so many options. There's actually even a 3D format option that if you want to change the rotation of this chart, you can certainly do that. Maybe you want to change the perspective a little bit. Default is 15. So maybe we want to slant it more. You can certainly do that. You can change the widths, you can change the X and Y, and so many other things. But for now, I'm just going to leave it there and summarize what we have done. The first chart we created was just a 2D chart. I showed you how to get rid of the legend and then how to add these data labels, and actually show you how you can format what you're actually seeing within these data labels. And then we did the same thing but slightly faster fashion of creating this 3D chart with some of the similar features that we've seen before.